Just some definitions. Again, a lot of you are probably familiar with this. There's a big misconception between the difference between theory and law. When I was in school, and I assume most of you learned the same thing, that you start with a hypothesis, the so-called scientific method. We think of people walking around in white lab coats, sort of these priests of intellect, sort of walking around, dreaming of hypotheses. And then a bunch of them agree, and it becomes a theory, and then they test it, and it becomes a law. That's not at all what happens. Actually, theories are by far the most important parts of scientific knowledge that we have. If you can develop a scientific theory, that's pretty good. Very few people have been able to do this. There's only a handful of them. On the other hand, there's lots of laws. There's lots of effects and principles and laws. The law of gravity, what are some other laws? The law of conservation of energy, the law of conservation of mass. But a theory is a description. This is by far much more important. This is something that you observe, and it's extremely useful. It acts as sort of the nuts and bolts of how you figure out some new information. But theories are by far more important because they're descriptions, whereas laws are really just things that we observe. What's important about a theory is that it's comprehensive. It's not ad hoc. It doesn't just focus on a particular phenomenon. It actually tries to, or actually incorporates, a huge body of data. Probably the best theory that or the one that you're most familiar with is either the theory of special relativity or general relativity, which I'll talk more about later on. What makes a theory so good is that it makes predictions. When a theory can predict something and then you find it out later on, that's strong proof that your description is correct. There's only a handful of them. It's a monumental achievement for somebody or some group of people to develop a theory. So when someone comes along and says that evolution is only a theory, it simply betrays their total lack of understanding of what's going on.
Or you could say that they're complimenting it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, either way. But from the tone, it's definitely not a compliment. And in the laws, it's an observed phenomenon. There's literally thousands of laws. And a model is somewhat in between. It's a tentative description, and it incorporates a lot of data, but there's usually some major problems with it. In the Big Bang model, it fits that middle description. Another one that we all rely on that you probably know something about is what's called the standard model. Does anybody know what the standard model of matter is? Yeah, it's just the idea. It's the whole idea of quarks and leptons. It's an incredibly detailed and comprehensive model, yet it doesn't explain everything. There are some anomalies. So, you know, for various reasons, it's not called the standard theory. It's called the standard model. And only later, when we can figure out how gravity is a quantized force, whether gravitational waves exist or so forth, then it'll probably be promoted to the theory. But for right now, it's a model. And it certainly doesn't mean that we don't know what's going on. It means we know a lot of what's going on. We just don't know everything.